Now this one is going to be a little trickier. So we're going to head into our post component, and we're going to kind of talk through some strategy here, and then we're going to implement the exact system that we're trying to use. So two things here. One, we are fetching each individual post every time a user navigates to this page. Two, we need a way of uniquely identifying the post per page. Three, if there's an error and we go to a page that doesn't have a post, or if something goes wrong, we want to display the error, and we want to also display if the screen should be loading. So there's going to be a lot going on here, and again, if any of this is over your head, don't freak out. We're going to go over it in due time. Cool? All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to define a few other state parameters. We're going to say const is loading, set is loading, equals useState false. We also want to say const error, set error, equals useState null. So if there's an error or anything happens or goes wrong when fetching our post, we're going to set an error here. If while we are fetching, we are going to have this isLoading flag set to true. Then we are going to actually do the fetching here. We are going to also use a useEffect hook, and that useEffect hook is going to make a request to our backend. So we're going to say const fetch post by slug is equal to an async function that is going to start by set is loading to true, and is going to end by set is loading to false. So as soon as this function kicks off, it will set this is loading flag to true. As soon as it is done, it will set it back to false. Then we are going to make our Axios request here. Now let's refresh a little bit about what this Axios request should look like. Remember that the route is to the blog /slug. So if we went to new post, we should see right there. If we misspell it and we have wrong post or something there, it'll give us a 404 error, and second post should give us the second post. And so what we want to do is we want to somehow get this slug in our component and then make a request to this route. Now fortunately, React Router provides us with a custom hook that will allow us to do exactly that. So what we're going to do is we're going to import useParams from React Router DOM. Now notice how this one looks very similar to useState and useEffect, which are hooks that are provided to us by React. The useParams hook is provided to us by React Router DOM, but it works almost identically to useState and useEffect. It is a hook that all it does is it returns an object of key value pairs that are matched by whatever we have defined here in the path parameters. So notice how we've defined a single parameter called slug. It will know that, and it will have a single slug variable available to us, or an attribute available to us on the object returned by the useParams hook. Don't worry, a lot of words. It is way simpler when you actually just use it. So because we're rendering this post component here, and we have defined a path parameter in this route, we can come here and we can say const and destructure out the slug attribute equals useParams. And this slug is actually exactly equal to whatever path we decide to put after the word blog here in this part of the URL. So it'll capture whatever value we put here, and it'll make it available to us on this slug parameter in the object that is returned by useParams. So now, with that available to us, we should be able to do this pretty easily. We can say const res equals, or let's actually surround it in a try catch. Try catch in case anything goes wrong here. And we will say try const res equals await axios.get /blog/ the slug here. Ta-da! And then we want to say if res.data.post set post res.data.post. Now, if there's an error, on the other hand, or if we catch the error here, or if not res.data.post, else, let's just use an else here because it's simple enough. I usually don't use else's, but it works fine. Set error, post not found. Though we could actually probably check, this value here, because if we spell something wrong here, it'll send us back an error. So it'll be res.data.error, and we can go through that, but let's actually just console.log our res to see what's up. This might even be an easier way to do it. Res. And then we'll set the error post not found, and just so that we don't have to deal with this, we'll do the same exact thing right here. Console.log error. Now, you'll notice something here, by the way, or I hope you might have noticed it. You'll notice that this React hook useEffect has a missing dependency, slug. Now, what is this saying here? What it's saying is React knows that every time this slug changes, the result of this request is going to be different. And so the value we set in the post state is going to be different. And it knows that the block of code inside the useEffect hook depends on the slug. And so we don't only want this to run whenever this component is mounted to the screen, we want it to run whenever the slug changes. Because if we were to get a different slug, we'd want to make a request for the new post with that slug. And so our dependencies array is a very important part of the useEffect hook. Essentially all it does is it says this hook only runs whenever something in this dependency array changes. And so I can put anything I want here, but for the time being, I only want it to change when the slug changes. And so then all I'm going to do is I'm going to say fetch post by slug, like this, and that should work lovely. However, we're not actually using the isLoading or error flags at the moment. So I'm actually going to create a new method here. I'm going to say const render post content. And I'm going to create a function that will be responsible for rendering what appears on the page. We'll just say if is loading, if we're loading currently, just return an H1 that says loading. If there's an error, return an H1 that says error, and then a paragraph with a class name equals error, and then let's say string of whatever the error is. Otherwise, if neither of those are true, let's return all of the stuff that's inside this post content. So we'll just take this and we'll put it right here. And then below that, actually, you know what? Let's keep the post content part there. Let's take all the insides here. And let's return all of that. Now you'll notice I'm using fragments again here. The reason why is because React, you can't render, when you return something here, when we return a bunch of these sibling elements, it's returning multiple values inside this return statement. And that's actually not valid React. You have to return a single element. And so you'll often see me using these fragment tags to make sure that everything that's returned inside this return statement is one single element. Now, this won't actually get rendered as any real tag in the DOM in HTML, but it is useful for wrapping a bunch of sibling tags so that you return them all as one single value. And then in here, we can just call the render post content function, and it will return whatever JSX is appropriate for the state of our application at any moment, or for the state of this component at least. So if I save this, and I come over here, and I refresh this page, everything seems to be going well now. Maybe I messed it up, totally possible. Let's check it out. I'm going to click here. Ah, cool. So I did mess it up somehow. Error, post not found. Let's see what happened here. Cannot get, blog, second post. Now, the reason why is because I didn't put the HTTP //localhost 3001 here, but hopefully doing that should change it. But it's nice to at least see that our error did work like we hoped it would. Let's refresh again, and ta-da! Second post. This is my second post. Invalid date. Okay, I still messed up the moment. The date, let's go ahead and change that. So I guess new date is not what we want here. Save it. Let's see if that works again. today at 10:32 p.m. I think it's just giving me the current time, so I actually don't think that's working, but I'll take a look at it in a second and figure out why not. Now we're getting really close here. We could probably add just like a few little styles to make this look nicer, the same way we did before, and then we will have this working exactly as we want it to. Let's give this a max width of 600, just like we did with the other stuff. Let's give it a width of 100%, and let's give it a margin of 50 pixels auto. Let's also make that H1 really big. Let's make its font size like 55 pixels or something, and font weight 200, and post content H1, there we go. And let's make that post body have a min height of, I don't know, like 250 pixels, and the post footer to have a height of 100 pixels or something. And let's see it now. Haha! And that's starting to look so much better. So now we can click on our blog. We can click on any of our posts, and you'll see it was loading for just a quick second. We could make that extend longer so we could see it, but we now can go back between different parts of our application. They load nicely. Each part of the blog works. We have different routes. Each route is dynamically rendered, and we have a fully functional blog application. The last and very last thing we need to do is be able to add new blog posts to our backend, and we will have finished our application full stack with React, Node, and Express.